Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192. or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Hello and welcome this 2nd May of 2nd May 2025. Apologies for that. It's still a few hours after the holiday. You can forgive us for that, right? So welcome back. This is the newspaper review. This is the morning brew. We will be sharing the different headlines on the papers, starting with the Standard, Nation and all the others. So on the Standard it reads, "A fed up nation."
And in the Daily Nation, the headline reads, "Storm around slain MP."
And on the People Daily, it's KRA to snoop on your M-Pesa bank account.
And on the People Daily, the headline reads, Treasury shuns tax increases to calm Gen Z.
Nice. So those are the key headlines that we're going to be talking about this morning, starting with the Standard newspaper. So on a fed-up nation, as messages of condolences poured in following the death of Kasipul MP Ongondo Were, a wave of public anger towards the political class began to surface. Many Kenyans responded with scorn to tributes from fellow politicians, and some even offered prayers of gratitude for Were's passing. So the main messages here that are highlighted from Twitter, popularly X. The first message reads, "If we continue at this rate, 1 MP per month, by 2027, Kenya will be corruption-free." The second one says, "We also mourn the demise of 5 people who were killed in the Angata Barikoi. This happened earlier this week. Let's also sympathize and move on. Gen Z used to abduct themselves. I think Hon Odongo shot himself too." That's what another tweet user is saying. And I have read several stories about this guy, and I can say he was a henchman. His death was planned for long. We don't need to mourn when the people of Kasapul and Homa Bay are celebrating. We sympathize and move on. That's another one. And lastly, a child was shot 7 times in Rongai, and someone asked, but he is alive. Another one said people are abducting themselves. And a day after BBC's report, one MP said people die every day. They sympathize and move on. They are thinking they are not exceptional to death. Now, these are the messages that were streaming in on social media concerning the death of the Kasipul MP. Now, a quote here is that June 25th, 2024, Kenya changed forever. A majority of politicians think the country can walk back. It's not happening. Politicians must embrace the fact that they serve at the pleasure of the voters. That is according to Arnold Maliba, political commentator. So that's the front page of the Standard newspaper. On top it just says unmet expectations on Labor Day. We will update you on that. And on sports, at the top right, it's Yamal heroics preserve Barkers. So Champs League final dream. We'll also talk about that. That's on page 32 on the Standard newspaper.
Now, the Nation newspaper actually highlights the same story about the Kasipul MP, and it reads, Kasipul MP Charles Ongondowere left Parliament shortly after 7 p.m. on Wednesday. Minutes later, his car pulled up at a red traffic light on Gong Road where an assailant shot him, and he was dead by 7:30 p.m. His death has sparked controversy amid claims linking him to bloody attacks in his constituency, but his family defended him, terming the accusations he had blood on his hands part of a cover-up for his murder. Now, the story goes on page 2 and 3. This is definitely a murder case that will be discussed for a while. Remember, some people are alleging that this MP was actually shot so that to remove the attention from the BBC expose. So those are some of the comments from people on social media. The story goes on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. Another story highlighted on the front page of the Daily Nation. On my top left, the finance bill. There's a picture of the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, that is John Buddy, and it reads, healthcare providers and farmers are among losers should a fresh proposal by the National Treasury to introduce 16% VAT, 16% value-added tax be passed. That story is on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation. And on matters education, the Daily Nation says Nyakango fights back in school bursary row with county chiefs, so facing sanctions for allegedly defying orders on county bursary funds. Controller of budget Margaret Nyakango returns to court. That story is on page 12. And finally, a story about crime. So a man was shot 13 times in front of his family, and he lived to tell the horror of the story. That is Charles Kamau, and we'll be highlighting you, giving you more details about that story. And remember, yesterday was Labor Day, International Labor Day, and President William Ruto led the celebrations at Uhuru Gardens here in Nairobi. And there's a picture of him with the Kotu Secretary General, that is Francis Atwoli, among other politicians and public figures like Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Public Service Cabinet Secretaries Geoffrey Ruku, and Labour CS, that is Alfred Mutua. And a quote here by the president reads, let us move united and committed to building a Kenya where dignity, opportunity and prosperity are accessible to all. So that was his message during yesterday's Labor Day celebrations. Back to you, Raf.
Nice. Now on the People Daily, it's KRA to snoop on your M-Pesa and bank account. So it highlights that MPs proposed law changes to give taxman access to personal financial data. So previously, we've had this conversation of how KRA should not have access to your M-Pesa and your bank accounts for personal reasons. However, in this new finance bill, this is part of it, giving KRA access to know how you are managing your money on M-Pesa and your bank transactions, which has been previously private. So that's on the key headline on the People Daily. At the bottom right, it says, slain lawmakers driver recounts fatal ambush. That is still on the Kasipul MP. And on the top left, it's why NDWE will not take part in Pope election. So this is going back to the whole event of the Pope's passing. So the conclave is supposed to be voting for the new Pope. And Cardinal NDWE cannot vote because he is actually 79, just close to 80, which marks him out, and he's also quite frail at the moment, which makes him not very, not the best candidate to place that vote. And lastly, it's how social media ruins lives and productivity. That is on page 17 of the People Daily, and that is what we have for you on that.
Now, on Labor Day celebrations, remember on page 4 of the Daily Nation, it says Ruto's tax reliefs for pensioners and hard-hit workers. So yesterday, the president announced a raft of tax reliefs for Kenyans, and not that he also increased the minimum wage from around 15,000 to now we have up to 16,000, 16,000 plus actually. And the last time the minimum wage was increased was in 2022 when the former president Uhuru Kenyatta was at the helm of that seat, the top seat, and an increase. Last year we didn't see any increase. Remember, last year the president said the economic times were tough and there was no chance to increase the minimum wage. And fortunately this year we have seen an increase in that. And yeah, it also comes at times when Treasury is shunning tax increases to calm Gen Z. Remember, last year the tax increases led to huge protests across the country, different parts of the countries. Hundreds of thousands of youth came out to protest the tax increases last year. And this year, as you've seen, even the government actually took time to release this year's Finance Bill 2025 in fear that Kenyans might actually come out to protest again. And it is actually one of the most highly anticipated finance bills ever in the history of the country, because now Kenyans want to see, are MPs listening to Kenyans, or will they still repeat what they did last year to increase taxes and to force Kenyans to dig deeper into their pockets just to ensure that the taxman is satisfied? So it's a good thing the president has done, and it says president promises to have all pensions, gratuity payments exempted from tax and pay reforms to boost workers' take home. Remember, he has also introduced he's also brought in tax reliefs for older and retired people. And he says, a quote by the president says, this reform is recognition of the service and sacrifice of our senior citizens and workers. Retirement should be met with dignity, not stress. That is a quote by the president yesterday during the Labor Day celebrations.
Nice. And still on Matters Business Daily, now just after the Treasury shuns tax increases to calm Gen Z, that specific story on Business Daily reads as follows. The government has refrained from aggressive tax-raising measures in the Finance Bill 2025 and is instead leaning on sealing revenue leakages as it looks to avoid repeat of the youth-led protests that met last year's tax hikes. So we all remember June 25th, actually from June 18th, when the protest kicked off at Nairobi and across the country. So that is what is happening in line with the Treasury. And just below that story, still on the Business Daily, inside employers' proposals that KOTU state tried to silence. So the Federation of Kenya Employees, FKE, was on Thursday blocked from addressing Labor Day celebrations in Nairobi on a dramatic day that saw the Central Organization of Trade Unions with the government. This is KOTU. So we are seeing there's a bit of a problem between KOTU and the Federation of Kenya Employees. So we will be updating you on this across our several bulletins following. This is still on Matters Business. And on the left, actually on the right, on the margin of the right on the Business Daily, chaos as vehicle number plate shortage persists. So NTSA has been shifting number plates from the old ones to the new ones. The new ones have a code, a QR code. If you've been watching the news, you know that KRA has been using cameras to track some cars, and they are only able to track those cars that are speeding on the highway because of the code that is placed on the number plate. But these number plates are under a shortage. So a shortage of number plates has persisted for close to a month now, despite assurances by the National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA. BAT payout to farmers rises to 1.1 billion shillings. So tobacco farmers contracted by BAT Kenya, this is British and American Tobacco Kenya, and apologies for that, and 1.12 billion in the year ended December of 2024, marking a 17.4% increase from the year before when the company paid them 954 million shillings. And lastly, on matters business on the Business Daily is commercial banks are clashing with CBK over loan pricing formula. So commercial banks have rejected a proposal by the CBK to control lending rates and instead want a free hand in determining the risk premium assigned to borrowers. So if you're thinking of taking a loan, different banks have different interest rates, but all these are regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya, which prescribes a certain rate which they should be following. But not all banks are following that because there is a lot of defaulting. People take a loan, they don't pay it back. People take a loan, it becomes a bit too expensive for them. So those are the challenges. But CBK wants it to be uniform. So that is what is happening on the Business Daily.
Now back to the slain MP. One of the top stories actually making headlines across different platforms, even including social media. So the story, the headline on page 2 reads, slain MP attempted murder of MCA and claims of violent past. So remember, these are accusations, and unfortunately now the former MP for Kasipul is not available to respond to any of these allegations that are coming out more strongly after his passing. So Kasipul lawmaker was shot and killed by a gunman during a stop at traffic lights in Nairobi. But at a glance, seeing the Daily Nation, the MP had said his life was in danger. This comes shortly after this. We're seeing reports that he has been shot dead. So in February, MP Charles Ngondowere expressed concerns over growing violence and unrest during public events in his constituency and alleged that there was a plan to kill him. He added that unarmed individuals from outside his constituency were behind the violence and assassination plot. His claim during a function in his constituency were recorded by some people attending the event and posted on social media platforms. When you hear I have been killed, Kasipul will not be the same again, Were said at the time. So this was a video, particularly yesterday, it has been doing rounds on social media after his death. And he said, when you hear I have been killed, Kasipul will not be the same again. So a quote here by MP Lilian Gogo, he says, I want to say this with my eyes on the cameras. The perpetrator of this murder is known. There is a way violence is creeping into Homa Bay politics, and this must be tamed by law enforcement authorities. So there are allegations that he was a violent man, and Were's brother says that the MP did not get any help from the police even after he named those planning to kill him. And the family denies any claims. Now, social media has actually been rife with these rumors, and they cannot be, particularly now that he has passed away, it becomes hard to verify them. And Charles Ongondo Were MP, the MP was loved and loathed in equal measure. So videos have emerged showing the lawmaker saying that some people were out to harm him. And we're seeing a picture of his family members, his kin actually, and mourners at his home, where in his village, in Kachian village yesterday. So the family has dismissed the claims that he was a violent man, insisting that the murder was politically motivated.
Nice. Now, still matters videos and still on the Kasipul Member of Parliament. So police are set to review CCTV eyewitness accounts in probe of MP's shooting. So a CCTV footage was actually discovered, and it indicates the man who was suspected of committing the crime and shooting the MP was actually trailing the MP's vehicle before committing the crime. So in this story, investigations yesterday reconstructed the scene and reviewed footage from street cameras. Police spokesman says the nature of crime appeared to be targeted and premeditated. This is about the fact that they were following him, like they were trailing the MP before taking the shot. And these are the timelines, specific timelines. At around 6 p.m., MP and his 2 ADs leave Parliament buildings. At 7:30 p.m., MP is shot at the city mortuary roundabout. And at 7:40 p.m., he arrives at Nairobi Hospital, where he is pronounced dead. So detectives visited the scene where Kasipul MP Charles Ongongo Were was shot dead along Valley Road, just opposite Daystar University. Sleuths from homicide and scenes of crime units restructured the scenes as they tried to piece together clues and evidence that might assist them in nailing Were's killer. So the MP was being driven to his Karen Ngongview estate when his life was cut short on Wednesday evening. So these are just the reconstructions of the events. We will also be informing you on what else transpired, because the one who shot was actually on a motorbike. He was the passenger on the pillion seat, and this is what happened. That's what happened. And still on this matter, Were joins long list of leaders killed in office. So in 1965, Pio Gamapinto was the first high-profile leader to be assassinated in independent Kenya. There have been several other murders that remain unresolved to date, and the authorities have been blamed for covering up the truth in such killings. So just as you've highlighted in that story about the frustration that the brother is facing and the police not acting promptly, will we experience the same thing this time round, or will the investigation actually be concluded and for the culprit to be brought to book? Those are the questions being asked, and those are the events that took place on the night before.
Now back here about tax reliefs and more matters about tax. Now internet, there's a story here on page 7 of the Daily Nation where internet-based TV and radio stations face 16% tax. So this is a move as the government tries to widen its tax base. So the television and radio streaming face a 16% value-added tax as the government moves to widen the tax base by tapping into the growing internet uptake. So the proposal, which is contained in the Finance Bill 2025, seeks to broaden the range of electronic services that pay the 16% VAT tax. So the bill was tabled in Parliament on Wednesday, and it is expected to be passed into law before July 1st. So we'll be keeping you updated on that. Still on the bill, on the finance bill. So the bill proposes the removal of duty on eggs and potatoes. So Kenyan consumers are set to enjoy lower prices of popular foodstuffs. And so imposition of duty on commodities resulted in trade spats that necessitated presidential intervention. 25% excess duty rate, that's the rate that Kenya placed on eggs, onions and potatoes imported from neighboring countries. But okay, we're seeing here progress now. So the government has moved to remove the tax on imported eggs, onions and potatoes in a bid to lower prices of those commodities. So that will actually help lower the prices of the food basket in the country. But remember, recently we highlighted to you a story where the price of unga ya ugali, it's set to increase due to a lack of cereals. There's the insufficient cereals. Maybe the previous harvest last year was not as bumper as expected. Remember last year we had a fertilizer scandal that might have affected how farmers, the produce, the final output that farmers had. And in this year's report, there is a projection that the price of maize flour is likely to increase. But despite this, the government is also moving to ensure that the price of other foodstuffs in major households is reduced, like eggs and potatoes. And still on the finance bill proposal, so top earners will get more tax-free per diem in the proposal. So a high-income earner who frequently travel for work are set to benefit from a tax reprieve under the proposed Finance Bill 2025, which seeks to raise the daily tax-exempt per diem allowance from 2,000 shillings to 10,000 shillings. So the five-fold increase primarily favors senior government officials and corporate executives who typically receive higher per diem during local and foreign business trips. So 6.5 billion of shillings that government spent on domestic travel in the months of December, in the month of 6 months to December 2026. So this is basically a tax relief for our political class and senior executives in the country. Remember that the normal mwananchi, the Kenyan, is getting a tax relief by the removal of duty on eggs and potatoes.
Interesting story there. When you've mentioned the tax relief on transportation, I actually thought you'd also be affected, because we are traveling to work every day. Hopefully they'll consider that so that we are all sorted out. However, just before we continue with all the other stories that we have for you in this newspaper review, please allow us to sip some tea this morning alongside you as you also take in all the other news that we have for you this morning. We'll see you in just a moment.
Almarai Company, in collaboration with Competitive Manpower, is urgently hiring for the following exciting roles: Grade 1 mechanics, panel beaters, refrigeration technicians, lead mechanics, diesel plant mechanics, welders and stainless steel welders. Why apply? This is a free recruitment with no application or placement fees required. Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available. Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Welcome to Competitive Training Institute, empowering you with in-demand skills. At Competitive Training Institute, we equip you with practical, job-ready skills that open doors both locally and internationally. Whether you're aiming to become a qualified caregiver, certified plumber, skilled automotive mechanic, or want to learn a foreign language like French, Arabic, or German, and many more, we've got the right course for you. Our hands-on training, guided by experienced instructors and aligned with market demands, ensures you're ready to compete and succeed in today's job market. We don't just train, we help you get hired. Our job placement team supports you in finding meaningful work after graduation. We are proudly accredited by NITA, ensuring high standards in all we offer. Ready to begin? Call us on 020-200-192. or 0721-223081 or email us at competitivetraining@gmail.com. Your journey starts here. Let's build your future together.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, rotating equipment repair technician, valve overhaul technician, machining technician.
Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.
Welcome back. This is CBS Breakfast Show, The Morning Brew, and back onto matters on the newspapers. So when it comes to the Daily Nation, actually the Standard, pardon, when it comes to now politics matters, will Matiang'i navigate rough and tumble of Kenyan politics? So the former Interior CS Fred Matiang'i is actually set to be doing his first public appearance today in Kisii. So we are waiting to see what he will say. Is he going to be the flag bearer for the new party being formed by the opposition leaders, or is he going to support Kalonzo Musyoka in these seats? So former cabinet secretary is expected to be crowned a Gusii elder in Kisii town today, and after the ceremony, Matiang'i will formally declare his interest to run for presidency. That is quite a story. And just a quote here by CS Onyonka: the field is open for the 2027 presidential election since Kenyans are very disappointed with the performance of Ruto. Matiang'i is not an angel, but a better devil, since his track record is out there for everyone to scrutinize, and I can say he tried his best as cabinet secretary. So this is Onyonka saying, and I think it's a bit interesting that he said he is a better devil, because if you're looking back at the 2022 elections, this was the same argument used for Ruto. This is a better devil. We know this devil might have stolen or done whatever, but he is ours. So is that the conversation you're going to witness with Matiang'i? A friendly devil, a common devil, a more familiar devil? So that is what Onyonka is saying. Those are exactly his words. Personally, I'm just looking forward to see how that story develops.
Remember, Gen Zs are saying they don't want a political leader who, they don't want a president who has stains in his political past. They want someone who has no bad history, no political tainted history. And among the people they are fronting for the top seat are the former Chief Justice, that is David Maraga, and the Senator for Busia County, Okia Okoiti Omtata. Among other top names that we are hoping and we will be expecting to see on that presidential ballot in the next general election. Of course, President William Ruto will be defending his seat. We're hoping to see, we've had Peter Salasia, that is Mumias East Member of Parliament. He also is putting it out there that he wants to vie for the top seat. Remember, this is his first time as a sitting MP, and it was, have you heard the story of how he came to be the MP?
Please.
Salasia actually never went campaigning, you know, with the money and cars, and all he had was his charisma, and he'd walk door to door in his constituency asking people to vote for him. All he had was his charm and charisma. And over the past week, we have been seeing him doing rallies across Western Kenya, and we're hoping to see how that goes. This will be one of the highly contested, one of the highly watched Kenya's elections, and we'll definitely be keeping you updated on that.
Yes, interestingly indeed. Now, when it comes to matters away from politics, conflict court orders throw bursary issuance into chaos. So we've been highlighting how MPs want the bursary, counties want the bursary. But in the middle of it all is the budget controller, Margaret Nyakango. So 2 separate court orders have thrown the controller of budget, COB, and Kenya's 47 county governments into confusion over the disbursement of bursaries. This comes just a week after students have returned to schools. So some students completely do not have any funds. That's why some counties, especially we've seen this with Murang'a County, especially the governor calling out the controller of budget to release these funds. So according to this story, on February 3rd, Judge Samuel Mahochi issued 5 orders. 2 of the orders temporarily restrained COB Margaret Nyakango from withdrawing or retracting her circular of January 14th, 2025. However, the circular restrained county governments from issuing bursaries to institutions beyond their jurisdiction as per the law, including primary, secondary, and university and special schools. So this whole conversation, this whole conflict on bursaries is far from over. And it's not just bursaries, they are competing for the road and maintenance levy fund. This is what Governor Sakaja of Nairobi was talking about just recently in an interview, saying Kenyans are complaining about bad roads. It's been raining, there's potholes, there's flooding, but what he said is it's not in his purview. This is supposed to be dealt by the national government, not by the county government. However, if these funds are to be provided, Kenyans do expect better roads, better facilities, and there's so much funds that seems to be held back by the controller of budgets. So who will be the winner? Who will take home these funds, and how will it be distributed? Those are the key questions.
And remember, it isn't just about the money, particularly as Nyakango fights back in the school bursary tussle with the governors. It isn't just about the money and the tussle between the control of budget and the governors. This is about the learners in our institutions and the future of the country. Will we be having learners dropping out of school because of lack of bursaries and school fees, simply because the government officials are fighting over the bursary issue? Or will they put the tussle aside and focus on the main issue, which is to ensure that learners are in school? Remember, they just reported for second term this May, last month as it ended in April, and there's still issues of capitation not being released to the institutions on time, with school heads even being forced to turn off their phones so that to avoid the phone calls from suppliers who they owe money from previous term supplies. Hopefully the government can intervene to ensure everything runs smoothly. And still on matters education, the hiring of varsity deputy VC revoked over forged papers. So this is a story on page 12 of the Daily Nation, and so the story is about how the Employment and Labor Relations Court in Nakuru has nullified the appointment of Professor James Samirie Ole Nampushi as Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration, Finance and Strategy in the Masai Mara University. So in a judgment delivered on Wednesday, Justice James Rika declared Nampushi's appointment unconstitutional, null and void, stating that it failed the integrity threshold and contravened the values and principles of public service. So, so the ruling followed a petition filed by Narok resident Jimmy Panyumbe Luke, who challenged the appointment on grounds that Professor Nampushi was unqualified for the position. EACC also submitted evidence raising serious questions about the professor's academic credentials and flagged falsified documents. Very interesting story. Of course, now this was someone who, interestingly, was going to be in charge of academics, yet they were falsifying their academic qualifications. So that is an interesting story, and it is good to have petitioners, actually, people, whistleblowers. You know, if you're seeing something going wrong, people should not be scared of speaking up, because in the long run, that the bad seed being planted will have a ripple effect. Another story being highlighted here on page 12 still of the Daily Nation is a puzzle of clashing reports on ministries' performance. So 2 government agencies released conflicting reports on the performance of the Ministry of Lands within days of each other in March, casting public doubt on the accuracy of public service assessment. So the Public Service Commission ranked the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning second, just behind Kibabii University, which emerged as the top performing government institutions. So according to PSC's annual compliance report for the 2023-2024 financial year, the Kenya Trade Network Agency was ranked third. And yeah, so we will be keeping you updated on that, on why we are having clashing reports in the Ministry of Public Service. Yes.
Nice. And just like you mentioned on matters speaking out on issues, fix health crisis in Nakuru now, lobby demands. Now, yesterday we talked about how the governor, Susan Kihika, is back in the country, is back in the county. However, overwhelmed hospitals, unanswered deaths, and silence from leaders have fueled demands for healthcare reforms. A rights group is now calling for an independent task force to audit the county's health services. So the Nakuru Human Rights Defenders Network, NHRDN, is calling for the establishment of an independent health oversight task force to investigate the healthcare crisis in Nakuru County. In a statement, the group, comprising members from Nakuru like Kipia, Baringo, Kericho, Narok, and Nyandarua, has issued a 14-day ultimatum to the county for this to be constituted. So a quote here by one of the from the Nakuru Human Rights Defenders is that its closure was marred by irregularities, including the involvement of criminal gangs and disruption that put both staff and patients at risk. So the specific organization being highlighted here is the War Memorial Hospital in Nakuru. So apparently its closure has greatly impacted the services that are being provided to the people in the county. And this is the rallying call for the residents.
Now, in Kwale County, why locals are uneasy over mining in Murima Hill Forest. So the community says it will not allow the destruction of the kayas or be denied access to sites. So this forest, a quote by one of the residents, and he says, this is Mzee Ali Suleiman. He says, this forest is sacred to us. Our biggest fear is that investors will venture deep where the shrines and sacred trees are located. So they fear the activities, the mining activities, will damage the revered kaya grounds and exotic trees. So mineral-rich forest in Lunga, Kwale County has become the latest source of tension in the coastal region, with the residents expressing fears over the exploitation of earth elements worth trillions of shillings. So the Mrima complex, which hosts one of the largest deposits of rare earth minerals globally, has drawn interest from investors, and 2 Australian firms have emerged, have applied for a prospecting license through the National Mining Corporation to explore rare earths, phosphate, manganese in the forest. And now the residents are raising alarm over this. Remember, this is an exotic site, a prehistoric site. This actually holds Kenya's coastal culture and coastal history, and we are hoping the government can ensure, maybe in as much as mining is happening, the culture is still protected, and the community feels that their history, the cultural history, remains intact.
Nice. Now on to matters business news. Showdown looms as banks reject CBK's cheap loans reform plan. So banking industry interprets this review process as a form of price control. So just for context, there has been a recently concluded review conducted by the CBK on Kenyan banks, and it was to see, are they following the rules, are they following the base lending rate, to ensure that the customers are also not being infringed on. So under the new radical reforms, the state also proposes to subject banks to loan markups to regulatory scrutiny. So the picture here is of CBK Governor Dr. Kamau Tuge, and the story reads, a showdown is brewing between commercial banks and CBK over the state-backed proposals. So the banking industry yesterday on Thursday rejected CBK Governor Kamau Thuge's plan to peg loan prices to the benchmark central bank rate. We just talked about that earlier as we were starting. The CBR is the benchmark rate of interest the banking regulator charges on loan to banks. And this rate directly affects borrowing costs in the economy and serves as a key monetary policy tool for controlling inflation, promoting economic growth, and stabilizing the shilling exchange rate. So the CBR is supposed to be doing all this for Kenyans. However, it's not very competitive for the banks. The banks feel as if they're being infringed on. Their rights and their profits are not actually getting to reach the margins that they're expecting. So this is the conflict experienced between the two. We will also see what the Kenya Bankers Association has to say about this, because they are the regulating body at the end of the day, just after the Central Bank of Kenya. So that's the main story there. And still on matters Labor Day, tension deepened between KOTU and employers. So the silence of the Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE, just as we highlighted earlier, during this year's Labor Day celebration spoke volumes, particularly after the event attended by high-ranking dignitaries, including President William Ruto, concluded without any remarks from the employers' body. So FKE, representing over 1,400 employers nationwide, has been locked in a prolonged standoff with the Central Organization of Trade Unions, KOTU. The rift deepened after KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli accused employers under the FKE umbrella of dragging their feet whenever the government announces a minimum wage increase. This whole conversation about the minimum wage, we talked about it just at the beginning. President William Ruto talked about the 6% increase in the minimum wage rate. It was supposed to be implemented in 2024. That was not completed. That did not happen. So yesterday, speaking during the Labor Day celebrations, he said this will be done. It will be moved from 15,200 to 16,200 thereabout. So will this finally be implemented? The problem that is being addressed here is employers are not implementing it. Like the government is putting it across, do this, increase the minimum wage for all your employees. However, the employers themselves just don't seem to follow suit, and that is why that conflict seemed to have taken place yesterday. So that's on Matters Business on the Standard newspaper.
And remember, a reminder for these Labor Day celebrations is that as an employee, you have rights. You ought to be aware of your rights to ensure that your employer is not taking advantage of you in any way. Now moving on to another story. Remember, we recently highlighted for you a story about the Cusco fraud. So the Kenya Police, the Kenya National Police Circle lost up to 200 million in that Cusco fraud. So they lost 200 million due to the fraud of the Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, that is Cusco, according to a new credit rating report. So the circle, which recently stabbed off probe by the Director of Criminal Investigations following claims of embezzlement of funds, will draw comfort in retaining its rating of A-, which is stable outlook. So that was a very interesting story. Still on Matters Business, a global retailer Pandamat in expansion bid. So there's a picture there of Principal Administrative Secretary, State House Abraham, that is Keitani, and with the Pandamat General Manager. So the outlet, the global retailer outlet actually is in Galleria Mall, and the second store is to be opened. Occupies a retail space of over 13,000 square meters and stock a variety of items from sports, furniture, kitchenware, among others. So definitely business is improving, while in some areas it is facing challenges.
Yes, indeed. Is there any other business highlights on the Standard?
Another business highlight on the Standard is investors warn of long-term bonds in 350 billion shillings that sell. So investors leaned towards the longer 25-year tenure paper in the first phase of the 80 billion shillings May Treasury bond sale, eyeing its higher interest rate and amid falling yields across government securities. So the May issuance, which opened on April 16th, comprised a pair of reopened 15th to 25 bonds seeking a 50 billion. Wholesale closed on Wednesday. Yeah, so that is an interesting story.
Nice. Now on to matter sports news. 2025 Safari Rally attracted the biggest crowd since the return of WRC in Kenya. So 2025 Safari Rally attracted over 400,000 people, the biggest attendance since the event returned to the global champion calendar in 2021. So it's only been 4 years and this is the highest number. It might even get popular as we keep on going because the hype is crazy during that season. So speaking on Wednesday, Safari Rally CEO Charles Gashiru also said preparations for the 2026 event were already underway. So if you're thinking about attending the next Safari Rally, then please, this is the time for you to put your things in order. So fierce battle for league playoffs slot serves off today at Nyayo. So Kenya Army, Prisons Nairobi and Vihiga have everything to play for starting today. There are 3 remaining spots for the playoffs that will determine the league champions. This is specifically in volleyball, just for context. And just to close, or just another story is tributes pour in for KBF boss Paul Otula. So the late Paul Otula's profile is that he served as principal for Maseno Mangu and Sunshine Secondary School, and in 2008 he was elected Kenya Basketball Federation president in 2008, a position he served to date until his passing. So he was National Olympic Committee of Kenya NOCK board member and had expressed interest in the adjoining NOCK elections where he was vying for the assistant treasurer spot. So earlier this week we talked about how NOCK is looking for some new leaders and how the former marathoner was saying he might actually be vying for the seat. So the elections are set to be happening soon enough, and that is what is happening on business on sports, pardon. Lastly, with Yamal heroics preserve Barcelona's Champions League final dream. So Wednesday's semi-final results are that Barcelona and Inter Milan drew 3-3. The key moments was an audacious Thuram flick, which put Inter Milan ahead. And these are just the games that are there. For the Inter Milan coach, he said, "We saw a fantastic match and we knew that semi-finals are difficult. We could even have won. And when it comes to Barcelona's coach, we didn't start well, but we got right back into the match. The second half was spectacular. There is one leg for this tie left." So that's what's happening. The main picture here is of 17-year-old lead Barcelona fight back in 3-3 draw in Inter Milan. The picture is here, and that's what we have for you on sports on the Standard newspaper.
Now on the Daily Nation, there's an interesting story here, and the headline reads, ex-Chelsea star Mikel to conduct coaching clinics for Kenyan youngsters. So former English Premier League star, that is John Obi Mikel, will conduct coaching clinics for budding Kenyan footballers this weekend in Nairobi. So the 38-year-old former midfielder who won the UEFA Champions League with Chelsea in 2012 arrives in Nairobi on Friday around 2:30 p.m. Mikel also won the Europa League trophy with Chelsea in 2013. So tomorrow, Mikel will mentor budding footballers of different age groups at Rusinga School in Nairobi, followed by a media session at midday at the same venue. So definitely tomorrow we'll be keeping you updated on that. Stay tuned for that story.
Yes, indeed. And that marks all the news that we have for you this morning on across the board on current affairs, politics, business, and sports news. My name is RAPH WANGUTUSI.
My name is DANFLOW. LINDWE. Have yourself a blessed day.
Yes, and stay tuned with us at following bulletins 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. Stay safe. See you soon.
Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum, gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.
Join our team at AYTB in partnership with Competitive Manpower. AYTB is seeking qualified candidates for the following positions: Technical Advisor, QA or QC Personnel, Shop Coordinator, Report Organizer, Rotating Equipment Repair Technician, Valve Overhaul Technician, Machining Technician.
Contact us today on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. You can also visit us at Waterseas Plaza, Kikorok Road. Alternatively, you can send an email to info@competitivemanpower.com. Apply now. Limited slots available.